Thank you. It is a privilege to be here today, and especially to thank everyone who put it together, but especially two friends in the audience who are also mentors, which is a rare and special combination. My book and my poetry would not exist without the two of them, Alfred Nicole and Rhina Espaillat, and I thank them greatly for continuing contact and community and building that. I'm going to read 5 poems by other poets and 5 poems of my own, intermingled, and hope that they will all rub together and get better on my part. That's the plot, anyway. The first is a poem dedicated to Rhina by A.M. Juster, who is a fellow Powwow River poet, a group that Rhina formed 25 or so years ago. We've lost count. And it's for all the New Yorkers in the room. I will say she's lived 30 years almost in Newburyport, and she does consider it home, but she attributes everything she learned to her grandmother in the DR, and yet there was this long period from 1937 to 1990 in this city that she really just gets so energized as we drive in every time. It's amazing. It's a true love, let's put it that way. So A.M. Juster, Los Periquitos, for Rhina Espaillat. The parakeets of Brooklyn beat the cold by building homes near incidental heat. They hunt for laundry vents, the gaps in old facades, or humming coils above the street. Then stake their fragile claims with twigs and scraps they take from roofs and sidewalks. Joyously, they mate in maple trees and dodge the traps of easy birdseed and security. Though this unlikely flock delighted fans, consultants argued that it would not survive. They later pushed eradication plans, supposedly so native breeds could thrive. We should have known these studies were a waste, for true New Yorkers cannot be displaced. Now, a favorite series of poems, if you looked across the work of Rhina, as many of us have done to pick some for tonight, are the discussions, arguments, friendly conversations she has with God. And so I've chosen one of those called On the Avenue. I think you'll recognize, at least the old-timers in the city will recognize some of the spots. Rhina Espaillat, On the Avenue. I said to God, it was a windy day, and we were waiting for the light to change on 59th Street, where black coaches wait for tourists, and dejected horses pay little attention to the passing scene. I said to God, look at these creatures, fate, that is, your will, stranded them on the dung heap of this life. I'm sure you could arrange something more suited to their speed and grace than midtown tours and lunch out of a bag. And while I have your ear, the light was green and we strolled on, the plaza on our right and on our left, break dancers. That gray hag there, with her entourage of pigeons, face like a map of madness, angles blue with bodies riot thick in every vein. Is that what living earns? Is this your view of what old age deserves? That boy, delight, miraculous in every move, performs for shifting crowds, and having danced and sung his hours away, scoops up his change and moves along. Is this your plan for us, the end of miracles? I tell you as a friend, but there are those who say the cosmos proves you have grown callous to our sort of pain, and have perhaps forgot your own, or worse, never did know the fleeting thing that warms us wearers of flesh and rules us from above without the common hurt that couches love. This is no way to run a universe. God mulled his answer as we ambled south in silence, past the shops, bendel to sacks, and then he turned to face me, and his mouth released a spate of starlings, and a peal of bells, and tiers of dressy shoes, and stacks of books on sale at Doubleday, and rows of steaming carts with shish kebabs, meat pies, and every meretricious face the good has ever worn. Ah, slippery old eel, I thought, and laughed. What politician knows how to embroider pseudo-argument out of non-sequiturs like you? We should be angry with you. The friends you take, like books borrowed forever. Laws you make and fail to keep. Injuries you invent to justify returning each sad prayer to us unopened. But what's friendship for, if not forgiveness? So I let it pass, indulged him as he uttered fountains, grass, Johann Sebastian on steel drums, and more genial evasions. We resumed our walk, trading impressions through the darkening air, to the amusement of some 2 or 3 who, disbelieving what the eye can't see, missed God in the clear robe of his disguise, and skeptical of solitary talk, enjoyed my gestures, thinking me alone above those skaters on their lake of stone. And now 2 of mine. The color is perfect at this moment for this poem. Twilight coming on. Old friends in the garden, twilight coming on. My father was a whittler. The man becomes the boy. His eye on his father's hand, the short, sharp blade. He'd pick a piece of wood by what he could make of it. He'd look for a knot or a fork. He studies the western sky. Wet trees against indigo, trunks black as graphite. Some wood can break a blade, my dad would say. Too hard to carve. They lose the light in silence, the wood's blue-black. He turns a twig in his hand. He used to call it ironwood. And now we all have friends and family, and this is for a brother. All the weird ones come to me. All the weird ones come to me because I look them in the eye, because my big brother is crazy. All the bagmen, the artists, gonzos, spare change rattling, careful gleam in the eye, nothing up the sleeve, hustle around so that no one sees, quick men, all the fruitcakes you're bound to meet on the streets of America. So I visit my brother in the nut house, and they gather around to bum a light, to smell me, to tell me, to show me, and never once to hurt me, except in their pressing in all the time with so much need. And then my brother shepherds me outside to his own needs, more transparent to me than the ones inside. If I touch him as he leaves, he does not leave so hard nor go so far. A Rhina poem, I think many of you know, but a favorite, because I hope I can do this without getting out the Kleenex. The last one that Carolyn read got me. But this is a fun one, or maybe not. But we have to speak to our loved ones in as many voices as we can. The poet's husband engages in gourmet cooking. My better half, who's in the kitchen, has summoned me again to pitch in, clear out the sink, take down 2 bowls. He's proud he can reverse our roles, nurture his skill for fancy cooking. I wish he'd nurture skill at looking, no, better still, genius for finding where things are kept without reminding, for wiping, sweeping, washing, drying, removing grease from earlier frying. But no, in half an hour, 12 times I'm called from soon-forgotten rhymes, from perfect metaphors chewed up, to point out pan and 8-ounce cup and colander there on the hooks, where one might find them if one looks. In time like these, one's thought embark on reveries forbidden, dark, whose very joy invites distress. The phrase, no forwarding address, life in some distant, not quite hovel, with someone working on his novel, wholly immersed in chapter 3, living on cake and cheese like me. You never know how funny that is until you hear somebody else read it, right? How true, how true. And here's one for my dear husband who wishes he could be here very much. The quandary I face. This is an incredibly sexy poem, disguised well, I hope. The quandary I face. Until first light in my usual sleepless state, I envy the rhythms of my sleeping mate. He upsets the serenity I need to rest, to sow the flowers of dream seed until first light. The mystery in the winding path I tread replaces worry beads inside my head with fantasies, until I trip and fall, losing sight of how to love at all until first light. The quandary I face with pounding breast is waken or let be someone so blessed. I wonder if a well-placed hip can sway the solo voyage of late night to play until first light. Here's another incredibly sexy one from Rhina. She resists, but barely. She resists, but barely. Look at the state of wild undress you've caught me in, poem. Lying about with all the housework still untouched. God knows I've fought you, but how hard? Or did I mean to fall and leave my thoughts unclothed, indolent, out of guile, my mind unlocked so you could slip right in and find me? That's what you're about. All the housework still untouched. God knows I've fought you, but how hard? Or did I mean to fall and leave my thoughts unclothed, indolent, out of guile, my mind unlocked so you could slip right in and find me? That's what you're about, I know. Seduction, your insidious lip pressed to my ear. I ought to sew and cook. I ought to sweep and wash. I ought to dust. But you have stirred my dust instead. And look how duty yields to my peculiar lust. Your silky promise of some future bliss. And not a thing to cover me but this. And now 3 more short poems, a turn to the more serious. We lost a great Powell River poem, David Berman, recently. All seems it's 2 years ago, but very recently to many of us. And 4 very dedicated people, Rhina and Alfred and Juster and Bruce Bennett, have gone through his entire collection, and there will be a book forthcoming of David Berman poems pretty soon, I hope. So I chose one, and it's not an easy one to read, but it is a sampling of the man. He could be soft and funny and write about a cat, and he could be profound and always, always particular about our punctuation in workshop, always particular about certain biblical references. He was our go-to person for those things. A very profound man, and a great friend, and a wonderful host and music lover. So here's David Berman's The World Goes On. The world goes on without you, See, the paper is delivered and breakfast is eaten silently. The cup of coffee in my hand awakens me to progresses beyond distemper or disdain. The world is, as the poet says, or would have, had he looked again, always with us. Change is for the living to devour with bread. Only the heart begs just once more communion with the worldless dead. And now the last two of mine in the book. Late Harvest, its title name, with a sample of Late Harvest on the cover. Late Harvest. The berries that withstand the frost, if they endure at all, have liquored juice and puckered flesh, unlike the fruit of fall. They're hanging in the garden's ruin until some hand or wing can part the crumpled, mildewed leaves and grasp the precious thing. And finally, the shawl, which is maybe my conversation with God. I haven't quite decided what this poem is about. You know how sometimes they come at you and you go, okay, we'll let you figure this one out. The shawl. The fine old shawl I'm wearing has dark patterns in the weaving that give texture to my dreaming, all handmade. Is my weary search for meaning, or believing, or becoming, all my endless careful mending just charade? Yet the fabric's growing stronger, while the wearer's getting weaker, and the mender meets the weaver unafraid. Thank you.
That Rhina wrote, I think it's the only poem in Spanish in her collection, Her Place in These Designs. Maybe. And it has its English translation in the book too. By the way, Her Place in These Designs, the cover is a photograph of a sculpture by Alfred Moskowitz. Right. So it's called Canción Penúltima, which means next to last song. And when I read the Spanish, and the title, song is in the title, Canción. It is a song. I couldn't help myself. I want to thank especially John Tavano for letting me borrow his exquisite guitar. I'm not a musician. I'm a 60s folk singer who doesn't practice regularly. But this song, the lyrics are so wonderful that the melody just, I don't know, came so naturally. So I'm going to sing it. Okay.
Ave de trino mortal, que vuelas de beso en beso, ¿dónde irás cuando naufrague tu nido de carne y hueso? Arpa de 5 cuerdas que elogias la luz prestada, que mano te hará caricias cuando caigas en la nada. ocasos de cobre, mar de acero y hojalata. Hay luna que va sangrando sus pesadumbres de plata. Ayer es medio vestidos de bronce, de azufre y grana. Lenguas de fuego que cantan